Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick back on FFG's webpage for Star Wars Legion. We have another reveal article here. Now before we dive into this, I do want to point out that yes, we've had everything from Wave 1 spoiled at this point. So this video is not going to have anything new, but it's worth just having a look at this because we got some nice high-res pictures of some of these Rebel units, and let's actually have a discussion about particularly what's going on with Luke Skywalker. This is Rebel Recruits, a preview of the Rebel Alliance forces in Star Wars Legion. Let's scroll down to Luke's card and have a look at him. So in the last video I did of these, we had a good look at Darth Vader, and like Darth Vader, we have Luke here, and yes, we've talked about these guys before, but let's go through it now because we also have all the upgrade cards this guy can also take. Luke Skywalker is a 160 point commander for the Rebellion. His upgrade bar consists of 2 force abilities and a tech slot, 6 health, 3 constitution, defends with red dice, surge on offense is turned into crits, moves at speed 2. He has Anakin's lightsaber, a melee attack that attacks with 6 black dice, impact 2, pierce 2. Luke's DL-44 blaster pistol, range 1 to 2, 2 red dice, pierce 2. Keywords are jump 1, perform a move action which you ignore terrain that is height 1 or lower. You have charge, after you perform a move action you can perform a free melee attack action. Deflect, when defending if you spend a dodge token you gain surge equals evade. If it's a ranged attack, the attacker suffers 1 wound for each surge result rolled and he is immune to pierce. And the main key things that are different between Luke and Vader is Luke is significantly cheaper at 160 points. He has 1 tech slot instead of the 3rd force slot. He has a ranged attack naturally. He moves at speed 2 and his surge results are turned into crits on offense. These are the key things that make him different to Vader. And just these key things alone change the fundamental approach about the way we want to build him out. For example, we have all the force abilities spoiled now, and we had Sabre Throw talked about in the last article with Darth Vader. And I think right off the bat, we can look at Luke Skywalker and say, look, Sabre Throw is probably not something he wants to take. It grants him a ranged attack with half the dice of one of his melee attacks. In that, he would have a range 1 to 2 attack with 3 black dice with impact 2 and pierce 2. And the simple fact of the matter is that does not give him mathematically much better odds than the attack he already has that's range in his blaster pistol. 2 red dice and pierce 2. Basically what you'd get off Sabre Throw is 3 black dice, which is arguably a tiny bit more consistent over 2 red dice, and you'd gain impact 2. It just doesn't seem to have that much value on Luke. With Vader we had the ability to perform any attack after he moves, but with Luke we have the charge keyword, which means he can only perform a melee attack after he moves, which means you wouldn't be able to even use Sabre Throw off the back of charge. Now look, it's early days and we haven't had a chance to sit down and actually play this game in tournaments, so we don't really know the full implications of something like impact 2 off the back of Luke throwing his saber, and maybe that alone is great and this will actually make Sabre Throw worth taking on Luke. We don't know that for sure, but right off the bat, just comparing what this does on Luke as opposed to Vader, it just seems to have way more value on Vader, and that's why I don't think we're going to be seeing Sabre Throw on Luke, at least in not top tier lists. Now revealed in this article, and this was previously spoiled, but now we have a nice high-res picture, is Battle Meditation for 10 points. When you issue orders, one of those orders can be issued to any friendly unit on the battlefield. And this is basically the kind of the reverse of long-range comlink, which says that this unit can receive orders from your commander anywhere on the battlefield. If this card is on one of your units, it can always get this sort of quote-unquote battle meditation effect. But battle meditation gives you a bit more flexibility in that you can choose any unit per round. You can choose 1 unit per round. None of them have to have long-range comlink. Long-range comlink is good because it gives you basically the same amount of value, kind of, and it takes up the communication slot. But Battle Meditation is more flexible, however it takes up a force ability slot, and that is arguably way more valuable. Currently we only have 2 units on the game, 1 on each faction, that has 4 slots. 2 on Luke, 3 on Vader. And that to me says that these slots are very valuable. So while yes, this is more flexible than long range comlink, it's also taking up a much more valuable slot. And I think that's kind of the way this has been checked and balanced to make sure it fits in the game and it's fair. The article also talks about Jedi Mind Trick, and this is good because currently Luke is the only unit in the game that can take this. It's a light side only card for 5 points, and you choose any enemy trooper unit at range 1 to 2, it gains 2 suppression tokens, which as it stands in the game of Star Wars Legion, locks down any Imperial troopers. They only have a constitution value of 1, so giving them 2 suppression tokens doubles that constitution value and causes them to flee, which is really, really powerful. It basically means if you suppress them, they can't attack you back, which gives you a great incentive to use those low pip commander cards to try and activate Luke first, use a mind trick and get him out of dodge as fast as possible. This seems really cool. This is basically the light side version of Choke. And I like the way these 2 cards are designed because Jedi Mind Trick is designed to completely protect your Jedi. If you have an enemy troop near you, you can completely prevent them from shooting your Jedi, but it doesn't actually hurt any of them. It doesn't take any minis off the board. Choke actively takes one of your opponent's minis off the board, but that's not a great way of preventing your opponent from shooting back at, say, Vader. If Vader chokes out one of the rebel troopers out of your squad, you can still shoot back at him with the rest of your squad, which gives you a bit more of a high risk, high reward. It's a more aggressive kind of build, and it just seems to really match the flavour of what's going on with these 2 different commanders. Luke seems to be more agile, a bit more dodgy than Vader. Vader, of course, can just take more punishment, but Luke isn't about that. Luke is about jumping around, being dodgy, and using his unique positioning to do more damage that way. Vader is a slow-rolling, aggressive tank, and Jedi Mind Trick and Choke just perfectly reflect this. It's also worth mentioning we can take Force Push on Luke. This is not a Vader unique card, despite the fact that the artwork on this card is obviously flavoured towards Vader. Choose an enemy trooper at range 1, perform a speed 1 move with that unit even if it is engaged. And this feels like it actually works really well on both commanders. It feels like it plays into their natural build style really, really well. Luke can manipulate the battlefield by moving guys away from him. Perhaps that's enough to get him into cover or get someone around a corner so they can't shoot him, or they have to spend more actions to get back to him. But it helps him dodge more, which is really, really good. And Force Push on Vader, of course, means he can be that slow rolling tank, but he can still push guys out of the way to push forward and get to the objective. And this card just seems like a great option on the offense and on the defense. And that's why I like the fact that they haven't made it faction specific. And again, I just think it's a really solid design. It just seems like it's going to be something that really works well. Now, I must again mention that we haven't actually had the hands-on tournament play of this game. And this is one of those cards which I think is going to need a bit of experimentation. Moving your opponent's units, it's kind of like how the Snowspeeders have that pivot action on your opponent's ATSTs and other vehicles and that kind of stuff. We don't really understand the full implications of what that looks like in a game in tournament play. So it would be really fun to see what this is like. This is just another one of those unique cards which I think is really going to surprise people in the way it impacts the game. Alright, one last thing that is not mentioned in this article. In fact, this wasn't even mentioned in the Vader article. This is Force Reflexes. And I think the main reason that this wasn't revealed in one of these articles is because, you know, like with our X-Wing reveals, they tend to leave out one little juicy detail that will open up and go, wow, this is awesome. And Force Reflexes is kind of like that card. Force Reflexes seems insane on both Luke and Vader. And the simple reason for that is because both of these characters have Deflect, which makes great use out of a dodge token. It basically means you can ping bullets and lightsabers. In fact, you can ping any ranged attack back at your opponent if you have a dodge token. And Force Reflexes means you do not have to spend an action to get your dodge token. You just use this for free, you have to spend it. Now, unfortunately, Luke does not have Master of the Force, so he can't re-ready this for free. But that alone, I don't think is enough to make this unvaluable on Luke. It's not like Sabre Throw, where I think that's clearly the better option on Vader. I still think this is an amazing option on Luke, and you'll gladly spend ready actions to get this back up the next turn. The fact of the matter is Luke is already pretty efficient, so having to spend the action to re-ready this seems absolutely fine. It's just one of those things where you'll gladly spend this when you need to defend, and you'll make sure that it's ready and up again for the next time that happens, and you'll just have to play around it. It won't re-ready for free, but that's fine. I think it's just built into the natural way you balance out Luke Skywalker, and this card is going to be really powerful on either Luke or Vader. And once again, we have an image here giving us a bit of an example of how the commander works. And this again just shows us the raw utility commanders can have. Luke here, for example, has used Jedi Mind Trick, which is a free action, and then he uses movement and uses the charge action to give him a free attack, meaning all of this is one single action. Luke may have, say, taken aim, and this is really good because in this scenario, these stormtroopers suddenly don't have the option of shooting Luke because they've lost their actions due to these suppression tokens, and the ATST obviously can't shoot Luke either because he's completely facing the wrong way. The last unique thing I want to talk about with Luke is the fact that his third force ability is not a force ability at all, it's a tech slot, which means he can take the grappling hooks or the targeting scopes. Now, considering Luke already has the jump action, I don't think grappling hooks is going to make much of a difference on him and probably isn't going to be worth taking on him. It is worth noting, however, we don't really have a full explanation of how the climbing mechanic works just yet, and this might not be the case. We don't really understand. Maybe, for example, we can climb a height of 2 if using the climbing action, and that way jump has no relevance and therefore you'll need the grappling hooks, but we just don't know yet. So I'm not going to make a comment on that entirely, but it would seem from the outset that there is no value taking grappling hooks on Luke. But something he can take is targeting scopes. You gain Precise 1. When you spend an aim token, reroll up to 1 additional die. It costs 6 points, and I had to double check this. I went back to the older articles on movement, and which talked about aim tokens. Aim tokens, it would appear, based on the articles we've been given, can be used on any attacks, which seems kind of weird that you can use a scope on a lightsaber, but from what we can see here, that seems fine. Meaning if Luke takes aim, does movement, and then does a melee attack, he can use the aim token to reroll 3 of his dice instead of just 2, which, considering he converts surge results to criticals, seems just absolutely disgusting. When we're talking about X-Wing and focus conversions, it's kind of the same rough mathematics that we talk about with Star Wars Legion and Surges. Basically, if you can convert focus results in X-Wing or say surge results in Legion, rerolls are very valuable because it basically means you're rerolling a die with slightly better odds, which means both of those results are slightly better odds and the odds kind of stack up and you have very, very high results of basically converting all of your hits. One more reroll seems really relevant on Luke Skywalker, and for that reason, I think targeting scopes is going to be a no-brainer on him. I mean, 6 points, from what we can tell, just makes so much sense. On Anakin's lightsaber, you get 3 rerolls. That, to me, is pretty consistently going to give you 6 hits. Fair and simple. If you're charging an ATST with Impact 2, you're going to push through a lot of damage because with 3 rerolls, there's very high odds that you're going to roll those surge results. You're going to get criticals. You're going to convert 2 of your regular hits to criticals, and you're going to punch through damage on those armored vehicles. And even though 1 more reroll might not seem like a lot, it just seems to mathematically make a lot of sense on Luke Skywalker. Considering it seems a lot of these force abilities seem to be more potent on Vader, it's nice that Luke has this slot, which seems to give him something that Vader just can't boast. Alright, if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, we also have revealed the AT-AT cards. Now, we're not going to talk about Rebel Troopers today because I'm guessing that they will get their own article just like the Stormtroopers did. But the AT-AT is interesting. With the Imperial faction, we had Vader who could only move speed 1, alongside the speeder bikes that can move speed 3. Where in the Rebel faction, we have a commander and a vehicle that can both move at speed 2. So there's way less variance in the speed there. And that just seems to balance out the way these two units are going to function together, which is good. The AT-AT can also take long-range comm scanners, so Luke can get very potent control over them. It just seemed like a great balanced approach to building this archetype of armies. There's a lot less variance in the Rebels. I think what we're going to see with the build types with the Rebels versus the Empire is Rebels are just going to be more middle of the road, more just fair, balanced mechanics, nothing too splashy or spiky, where the Imperials are going to favour those more spiky tactics where you have things that are either really slow or really fast, things that have to move, things that do a lot more damage, but if you get behind them, they're going to take more damage. There's more downside, but there's also more upside, that kind of more risk-reward type mechanics. And it's reflected here in Luke and the AT-AT in that they just seem to be a bit more basic, more middle of the road, more fairly costed, nothing too crazy, nothing too explosive. And I think that's actually a really good way to build an army. If you can just give your unit high value, high utility cards that just basically means you can adapt to a lot of different situations. That's going to be really good. And if you like that style of gameplay, if you like, I guess, basically the Rebel faction from X-Wing is very, very similar. If that's the kind of gameplay you like, I think the Rebel faction in Legion is going to be very similar. And that's just really cool. I like how we only have a small pool of units from both factions, but we can already see this archetype growing. And it just seems like the flavor of the game's coming through really strongly, and it just feels like a lot of thought and care has gone into this, and that's really good to see. Anyway, guys, that's it for this article. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook. Let us know what you think in the comments. I'm going to make a video soon with Justin about Luke Skywalker versus Vader, sort of the pros and cons of the two commanders, because I think those units are probably the most exciting thing to come out of the core set. But in the meantime, I will catch you later.